Welcome to the new sound of online radio. Welcome to the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network. 'Cause you make me feel like I've been locked out of heaven. A mix of today's hits and hard-to-find favorites, combined with the most entertaining and intriguing talk anywhere. This is your sound. This is the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network at uenradio.com.
Hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of Rebel Hearts with Kristie Reeves. I am so excited you're joining us today. And today is actually a super special episode. Not only have I two amazing guests or people here on the show, one guest and actually a co-host. We just had our 1 year anniversary. So, woohoo! And our first show last year was with the beautiful team of the Food Heals podcast, Allison Melody and Susie Hardy. And I actually asked my dear friend Allison to be my co-host on today's show in order to celebrate our 1 year anniversary. Woohoo! But before I introduce her and today's guest, let me share a little bit about some technology I came about that I really, really love. And I want to tell you a little bit more about. The company's name is Ampcoil, and the mission of Ampcoil is to empower people to be stewards of their own health and to create wellness with their family and community. Ampcoil is a modern wellness tool combining a powerful PEMF delivery system and an app called Better Guide. Better Guide uses voice analysis, biofeedback, to determine the customized tones your body is asking for, then place these frequencies back into the body, emitting them through a modified tester coil, penetrating them deeply into the cells. The result is that the human biology quickly begins to return to the balanced and harmonized state that nature intended. Microbes, metals, and toxins are neutralized by using a Tesla-based PEMF delivery system. The Ampcoil combines the right technology to cleanse the body and support nutrition and organ systems on a cellular level. Ampcoil combines scientifically proven technology to create the first customized PEMF wellness device made for home use for the entire family. The system takes absolutely no effort other than turning it on. Want a more in-depth understanding? Then visit their website at ampcoil.com and tell them that you heard about it on Rebel Hearts with Kristie Reeves to receive your first Ampcoil sound transmission through a modified tester coil. Rebel Hearts, I'm loving the technology. I just ordered my own device, and I'm so excited the international unit is coming out in the summer, which is half the size, and I can actually take it to Germany and wherever I travel. So check it out. And let's welcome Allison Melody, my co-host for today's show. Yippee! Allison, I'm so glad you're here today.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me, Kristie. I'm really honored, and I'm so excited to celebrate your 1 year anniversary with you.
It just felt so perfect since you were our first live guest on the first Rebel Heart show that aired, and I'm so honored that you said yes to co-hosting with me today.
Of course, and that was so much fun, and I love your show, and I'm a super fan.
Thank you. Same about your show.
Thank you.
And let's introduce today's guest, Jason Wrobel. Let's tell you guys a little bit about Jason, or J-Ro, as he likes to call himself, and we like to call him too.
Yeah, all right, I'm going to help you out. Jason Wrobel is the best-selling author of the Hay House Cookbook and Lifestyle Guide. It's something that I love. It's called Eaternity.
We're the best mac and cheese recipe ever had. There's a story to that. As the first plant-based chef with a primetime television series, his groundbreaking show, How to Live to 100, taught millions of people how to prepare delicious, organic, healthy meals at home.
A dedicated practitioner of yoga, Pilates, weight training, and meditation for over a decade, way longer than I've been doing most of this, he infuses his events, videos, and teachings with the importance of mindfulness, spirituality, and fitness as the cornerstones of a balanced existence. With more than 20 years of experience in holistic, plant-based nutrition and gourmet cooking techniques, his offerings are fueled by his passionate, lighthearted, and fun vibes. And we can both attest to that.
Yes. They're fun to watch. Watch the shows. Jace is a graduate of the Living Light Culinary Institute as well as Byron Katie School for the Work and received his BA in Marketing Communications from Columbia College, Chicago. His mission is to inspire you to achieve effortless well-being, clarity, and confidence through optimizing your relationship with food, fitness, and mindful living so you can live a happier, healthier, more joyful, and truly satisfied life. Woohoo!
Yeah.
Hey, welcome, Jason.
I was agonizing to actually write that. Can I be honest? Like writing your own bio. I don't know if you both feel this way, but there were moments like you want to celebrate yourself, but you're like, I don't know if I'm celebrating too much here. You know, because you want it to be solid, but you don't want it to be too braggadocious. But it was nice having it read to me. I felt like it was like a sweet bedtime story.
Yeah, here you go. Now you know more about yourself.
And if you can't do it, just hire a copywriter to do it.
That's
for
true.
you.
Exactly. You know, I used to be a copywriter before all of this.
You know what you're doing.
It was a really strange time in my life, but I worked in the advertising industry for many years when I got out of college, because the acting and music thing wasn't like paying the bills, and I was like, I want to act and I want to do my music, but it wasn't like bringing in a whole lot of money. So I was like, I can do copywriting. So the advertising industry was such a fascinating experience.
And did that help you with writing your book, Eaternity?
It helped with writing in general, because I feel like the study of human psychology in general and human development. I mean, all of these big marketing firms and ad agencies, you know, they're not just writing this stuff and creating advertising, you know, scattershot. Like they are very strategic and very determined with how they research things and explore human psychology and what makes people buy. And it was an interesting education to work with some big advertising firms. So that was my previous life.
And sometimes I think it's so funny how we have these previous lives and we do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And it doesn't really make sense while we're doing it. But when you look backwards, like, oh, I worked at the ad agency. I learned how to do my copywriting and maybe a little bit of marketing. And I learned how the market works. And it's helping me with the work I'm doing right now. So it's interesting how you cannot foresee it. But looking back, it all makes sense.
Yeah. And there's no wasted experiences.
Yeah.
You know, it's like we can go through this life journey and feel like, what is the point of this struggle? What is the point of this chapter? But as you said, when we look back, we're like, oh, this was just building experience, building wisdom, expanding me in a way. At the time, it may not feel like it.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think that's the thing about life is especially when we're in a challenging or painful moment, right? Is like thinking it's going to last forever and feeling like it's pointless. But I mean, everything has meaning if we assign meaning to it, right? It's up to us.
Exactly.
So I know we got off on a great tangent just right off the bat.
We're diving right
All
in.
existential.
That's awesome. And Jason, what is it that excites you the most about what you're doing right now, from writing cookbooks to doing workshops and all the fun stuff? What is the most exciting, inspiring thing about that for you at the moment?
I really think that there is an element, and I've been really touching on this when I spoke at the Longevity Now conference about 2 weeks ago, and I've been talking about this a lot, just more publicly, is the concept of radical authenticity. Because right now, what I really want to impart in people is just show up as yourself, because you don't have to play a role anymore. And we talked about this, Allison, right before we started, of there's so much formulaic thinking, even in the wellness industry or the conscious community, of if I just do everything perfectly and I follow the formula, or I follow this person's system and I do it exactly the way they did it, then I'll be as healthy, happy, successful, sexy, whatever it is. But I'm trying to get people, whether it's the way they eat, the way they think, the way they pray, the way they treat their bodies, their relationships, everything is like, make your own formula. Because if you're on a path already, you're following someone else's path, you're not on your own path. You know, Joseph Campbell's one of my favorite authors, of the famous mythologian from years ago, and his whole thing was like, you have to find the point in the forest, the darkest point in the forest where there is no path, and have the courage to just go into it, because if you find the trail, the big wide trail, everyone else is on that trail. Everyone else. And so the thing I'm trying to do right now is just, I mean, the word rebel, rebel hearts, is so perfect, because the idea to me of rebelliousness is not this pointless, I'm just going to be an anarchist and a rebel for the sake of doing it. But there's a point, and I think the point for me in what I'm doing is to get people to think critically about, how can I carve my own path and do this my way, instead of following someone else's formula, someone else's path. I just want people to do their own thing and be themselves. No matter what they're doing. So to me, that's the juiciest thing right now I've got going on, is just trying to teach people that.
I love it. And I think it's so true, because I feel like we're so shaped and molded by our environment. And it starts even with our school system, with our education system. You have to do it XYZ. You have to memorize in order to get a straight A's, right? Instead of being taught how to think for themselves, how to create your own path. And it's also, what is it that inspires you? What is it that makes you happy? What is it that excites you? Or what are your specific talents and interests? And we're having these cookie cutter schemes that, how children are being raised. So kudos to you for changing that and rebelling against these structures and creating new ways to go.
Well, I think we all have to do that, right? Because even in our own exploration of how we eat and how we think and every aspect of life that we're trying to be mindful about.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm realizing there are so many layers of conditioning.
Yeah.
And I was talking to, I'm actually working with a financial coach right now who's amazing for the first time. We're like working with someone because I was never really taught how to manage finances growing up.
Who is, unless your father or mother is someone in the financial industry? You don't learn that in school.
Completely,
Yeah,
right? Like
exactly.
many of the things that we need that are essential to living, like we didn't grow up like, oh, here's how to eat and take care of your body and manage your money and have healthy, balanced relationships. Like most people didn't learn that. But I was talking to my financial coach about the pressure and the layers of like being a man in American society. And that if you're not making a certain amount of money and you're not crushing it as an entrepreneur, and if you're not like doing these certain things that they predicate, like as a man in America, you need to have these things or do these things or be these things or you're worthless, right?
Yeah.
And so what I've been unraveling recently is my own conditioning of like, whatever, as a 40-year-old man, entrepreneur, like you need to have these things or, you're a piece of crap or you're worthless or you're not a success.
Exactly. There's no value.
You have no value as a man in this world if you're
Mm-hmm.
not making a ton of money and you don't have a really super expensive car and you're not surrounded by women fawning over like all these messages that we are taught of you're only worth something if you have these things.
Exactly, yeah.
And so just undoing decades of this conditioning.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it ever ends. I don't think there's ever a point where we're like, I am free of all the conditions and I'm now an enlightened being fully. I mean, I think we're endeavoring to do that.
Yeah.
But man, there are so many layers to this.
They
Yeah.
are.
And I'm a recovering perfectionist.
Yeah.
And so I really understand this because I came from a place of I have to do it a certain way. I have to act a certain way. I used to have 2 different Facebook accounts, one for my friends and one for my clients, because I didn't want my clients to see me in any party pictures or have a glass of wine in my hand, because that
having
was
fun.
Right, and having fun. I was supposed to be this young professional. And my husband would make my boyfriend, he was my boyfriend at the time, he would make fun of me. He'd be like, you pick up the phone and you're a different person. Hi, Allison Melody, Melody Productions. How can I help you? Who was that? That's not me. That's not who I was. And so radical authenticity really resonates with me when I hear you say that, because that's been the lesson that I've been learning and applying my last few years. And like, I grew up not a total rebel, but I was like, I follow all the rules, but I'm listening to Pearl Jam, so I was like always questioning authority and like trying to be different. And like Britney Spears came out and everyone was like, we love Britney. And I was like, oh, please. But like, I had a rebel heart, just like you talk about, and it's come full circle, because now it's like, just like Jason was saying, if we break the rules and change the mold, that's how we stand out. And how can we spread the message that we all here want to spread of health and healing and happiness if we're not standing out in our field? And so I just did a talk at NEB, and the whole thing, they said, can you talk about the do's and don'ts of interviewing? And so I did this whole thing with slides. Do this, don't do this. And then my last slide was, break all the rules. Don't listen to anyone else, including me. Do it your way.
Yeah. And I feel like everybody has such a unique and authentic energy. And if you're doing, kind of what you're saying, everybody has their formula. Everybody says, this is how you do it. This is how you don't do it.
Yeah.
It's not going to work. And I actually remember I moved to LA and I had this amazing acting coach. And I said to him, I'm like, Cameron, how am I going to get an agent? He's like, I could tell you, but I won't, because you will be doing it according to formula. I want you to just follow your instincts and do whatever you think is right. And so having me tell you what to do, because you will find the right people to work with. You will find your tribe if you are actually doing it yourself. If you just like tune in and feel like, okay, this is what I'm guided to do. But if I'm telling you what to do, it's not going to work out.
Yeah.
You won't find your voice.
Yeah.
So absolutely. I want to shift gears a little bit over here, but we might come back to that. I actually want to do a little bit of vegan myth busting with you, Jason.
I've looked forward to this. This ought to be. I hope this is as crazy and wacky in my mind as I think it's going to be. I have no idea what you're about to go do.
It was actually fun when I prepped this show today. I went on the internet and I Googled 10 vegan myths. And looked what people had to say, like the pro-vegan community and even the anti-vegan community said, "Oh no, the vegans are saying this. This is not true." So we'll bust at some of these myths over here. Do you want to go
Number
first?
one.
Number one, because Ali had a whole bunch for you too.
Let me think. Okay. So I grew up learning that milk did my body good. And my first experience of learning that it may not do my body good was I was on an acupuncturist table in North Carolina before I had any awareness of nutrition or holistic health. And the doctor said to me, are you drinking milk? And I was like, of course. I drink milk with pizza. Like, that's a part of a healthy diet. And he was like, well, I want to challenge you that it may not be. And I was like, okay, whatever, you crazy hippie over here, right? And now, obviously, as a card-carrying vegan, we know that's not true.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of people who grew up with that myth and still buy into it, including a lot of people that I hold dear to my heart.
Yeah.
And when they hear it from me, it's like, oh, Allie's just out in California drinking her green juice with her yoga mat strapped on her back. Like, she's just doing that whole thing.
With her homemade almond milk.
And so I can't bust the myth for them. So I would love for you to bust the myth for people that grew up just like me thinking milk does your body good. And what's the truth behind that?
Okay, cool. So first of all, I have been lactose intolerant since birth. I could not handle dairy products, but somehow, through the power of marketing, we go back to that. It was like, well, all my friends are drinking milk and they're having ice cream and they got these cheese pieces. So even though as a kid, I would get massive gastrointestinal distress and not feel good, I would cheat. I would just do it because everybody else was doing it. It's that tyranny of the majority. It's the societal pressure of like, everybody else is doing the thing, so let's do the thing, right?
Yeah.
So for me, it was an undoing in my teen years of just being honest with myself that eating this food was not making me feel good. And I knew it. I was just ignoring it to do what everybody else was doing, right? And it tastes good. Like, first of all, like, I'm going to go deep down the rabbit hole. I know we got a lot of myths, but the reason that it was so hard for me to break away from cheese and the reason that so many friends and family and clients have had a hard time is because there's actually a molecular compound in cheese called casomorphines. And casomorphines actually have the same addictive quality in your brain as heroin. It has a morphine effect. Now, why is that there? Casomorphines are there so that the baby cow or the baby animal latches onto the nipple and drinks the milk. They're there for a biological purpose. But guess what? When humans drink it, you get cracked out on that dairy. You get cracked out. Like people are like, dude, I could be fully plant-based except for the cheese.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not judging you, but you're chemically addicted. Like
Or
you
the
just
ice
are.
cream.
It's a chemically addictive thing. So recognizing that is number one. Number two, does milk have calcium? Absolutely. Here's the thing. It's not really assimilable. And here's why. It's acidic. So anytime you take an acidic high-protein substance into your body, in order to buffer that exceeding acidity in your blood, right? Because if your blood's too acidic, you'll die. Way too acidic. So it's got to buffer it. So what does it do? It actually pulls alkaline minerals from your bone structure to buffer the increased acidity. So what does that do? You get calcium, but you actually have a negative net effect. So statistically, if you look at all of the countries that consume the highest amount of dairy products, there's also a correlation that they have the highest rates of osteoporosis. So yes, milk does have calcium, but your body can't use it because it's too acidic. So does milk do a body good? Not really. You can get all the same nutrients. You can get the protein, you can get the B vitamins, you can get the vitamin D3, you can get the calcium from sources that are plant-based and actually assimilable and usable. That's the thing. People are like, oh, but it's got high protein, it's got all these vitamins and minerals. And my thing is like, can your body actually utilize it?
Yeah.
I don't care about the nutritive content. I care more about, can my body actually use the nutrients?
Exactly.
That's a whole different conversation.
Give us some examples, especially since we're talking about milk for high calcium plant-based foods. So like listeners are going like, oh yeah, I'm going to trade it in for some plant-based meals.
I mean, nuts and seeds are a great source of calcium. Specifically, like I think about sesame seeds or tahini or hummus. Like some seeds, sesame seeds in particular, black sesame seeds, white sesame seeds, super high in calcium. A lot of your juices that people buy now are actually fortified with calcium or vitamin D3. So calcium, but here's the other thing too. Research has shown that calcium is not necessarily the most important mineral for bone health. There's actually 3 other things that are more important. We mentioned vitamin D3, vitamin K2, which you should always take together, and actually magnesium. Magnesium converts to calcium in the body. So for me, if you're going to build strong bones, there's also a 4th thing. It's D3, K2, magnesium, but weight-bearing exercise. You've got to do resistance training of some form. I don't care if it's push-ups and chin-ups or you're pushing heavy-ass weight. I can say ass. I just said it twice.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
But those things to me are more important than calcium in terms of bone density and bone health.
Awesome. Myth number 2. Okay, I'm going to go back to and share a story with you. My mom became a vegetarian, not a vegan even, like a vegetarian back in the 80s. And I'm from an 800 people village in Germany, and Germany is meat and potatoes.
Right.
And pizza, since we have a lot of Italian immigrants. And I remember my mom wanting to switch to a vegetarian diet, and she went to cooking class to learn how to get all the nutrients into her body. And I can remember maybe a couple of years, a year or 2 into being a vegetarian, like I said, not even vegan, she would get calls from concerned family members and friends saying, "Are you doing okay? Do you have enough strength?
What?
Are you feeling weak?"
Right.
And it's interesting because doing my Google search on the myth busting, these are some of the main beliefs that are still out there. Vegans have no strength. So counter that myth, Jason.
Oh, vegans have. Oh, I have the perfect. I have the perfect example. So just this month, for the first time in history, on what was it? Muscle and Fitness magazine, probably like the #1 authority on bodybuilding and like strength type fitness, right? Muscle and Fitness, massive empire.
Yeah.
They also own Flex magazine. A guy by the name of NEMA Delgado, first vegan bodybuilder in history to have the cover of that magazine.
Amazing.
And even on the cover, vegan bodybuilder. Like that's
Nice.
never, ever, ever, ever happened. Like to that level of mainstream athleticism, right? So we have him as one example, but we have that whole movement of people like John Lewis, Torrey Washington, Dominic Thompson. I mean, there are champion competitive IFBB pro bodybuilders who are fully plant-based.
Yeah.
And also the guy I'm just talking about, NEMA Delgado, you can follow him on Instagram, all the social media. He's never eaten meat in his life. It wasn't like he switched to vegan. Like some people are like, oh, well, he must have been vegan like 3 years ago. Dude's never eaten meat.
Wow.
And he's ripped.
Yeah.
Like, it's incredible the physique and level of health this guy's achieved.
Yeah.
So that's just one example. But beyond that, I mean, if you look at high level pro athletes now, I mean, you think about Carl Lewis back in the day, who I think has won more, at the time, more track and field gold medals than anybody back in the 80s. Carl Lewis, fully plant-based. Now in the NBA, I'm a huge basketball fan. You've got Kyrie Irving, all-star guard on the Boston Celtics. He's vegan. Damian Lillard on the Portland Trailblazers is vegan. You've got Wilson Chandler on the Denver Nuggets, fully vegan. So you have high-level pro million-dollar athletes fueling their body on plants. So my whole thing is this whole thing of like, where do you get your protein? I'm like, 1972 called. Like, stop it with this question. Stop it. Like, it annoys me at this point. I'm like, protein is just a collection of essential amino acids. You can get those same amino acids in the same concentration from plant foods. It's not a big deal anymore. So people are like, where you get your protein? I'm like, let's do a push-up contest right now. Like, I've actually challenged people, like, get down on the floor right now. Let's do a push-up contest. I don't even care. But it's just, it's an old thing that was a carryover from the 70s.
Yeah.
That was this supposition that in order to get a complete protein, you had to combine rice and beans, right? It was this old school thing, but the nutrition research and knowledge was not the same in the 70s as it is in 2018. So now we have all, like I said, all these champion athletes that are doing it. All the research is there. And I'm actually celebrating in May next month 20 years of veganism.
Congratulations.
Yay.
So, like, I think I would have dropped dead at this point. You know, people are like, well, is it healthy? I'm like, I've been doing it 2 decades. I probably would have been dead by this point if it wasn't healthy, okay?
Look at me.
Like, for real.
I would love to add 2 resources to this. So there's a film, it just came out, it launched at Sundance this year in January called The Game Changers. And it follows athletes who are plant-based, and it is incredible. And one of the people that I was with, who has been a good friend of mine for a long time, literally went vegan because of that film.
Amazing.
And I don't know where it is yet. I'm sure it'll be on Amazon and Netflix near you as soon as it can be. It just, it's probably figuring it all out right now. But put it on your Google alerts, and when The Game Changers comes comes out, go see that film because it is a game changers is a game changer. And one thing that I love when people ask me, because it still happens to me too, where do you get your protein?
Sure.
And it's a loving question, so I don't want to judge the people who are asking, but it does get old, right?
I'll judge them.
Yeah. I think it depends where it's coming from. If I've heard it before from them, I'm like, we've already had this conversation. I don't need to hear this from you. But if it really does come from a loving place, no one is dying of a protein deficiency. When is the last time you heard of someone in the hospital, they're dying, they had a protein deficiency?
For real.
And this is really explained much better than I could ever explain it in Garth Davis's book called Proteinaholic. So if you're really curious about that topic, that book is incredible. Broken down by a doctor, by an MD who can really tell you the truth and the science behind it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And legit too, I think that, in terms of being proteinaholic, and I met Garth and talked to him, like, there is only a certain amount of protein you can take in every single day that's usable.
Right.
We talk
Yeah,
about usable
exactly.
nutrients. Even if you do excessive amounts, especially animal-based protein, but even plant-based protein, you can stress your kidneys and your endocrine system, like trying to eliminate all this excess protein. So people are like, this old school thing was like, if you want to build muscle, you got to have 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. And I'm like, that's a lot of protein. That's a lot of freaking protein. Like I'm about 170 pounds, right? And on average, I might do like 50 grams of protein a day, 60 tops, right? And if I have more than that, like I don't feel quite so good. Like my digestion gets weird. I start to feel sluggish. But I guess each person has to determine what's right for them. But I think this myth that we're going to of like, you have to have at least 1 gram per pound of body weight, it's a lot of protein for the body to handle every single day.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for busting that myth.
Yes, this is fun. I'm enjoying this.
Next myth.
They
have a myth
they get
for us?
progressively more challenging. Is that where we're going to go?
Okay, well, I feel like this one isn't challenging for the people in the room, but I still get asked this question all the time. I don't know about you guys, but like, how do you order at a restaurant? And for me, it's so easy. And it's so easy for me to eat an abundance of food. And I think that vegan food and the plant-powered diet is a decadent, delicious plate. But sometimes I'm in the middle of, let's say I was in South Dakota. I didn't have a lot of options. And so when there aren't a lot of options, then what do you guys do? How can we order vegan in a restaurant? And how do we, let's say we're trying to go plant-based and we're like, well, I'm going to fall off the wagon because I live in Wyoming and there's no options. How do we bust that at a restaurant?
I mean, I got to be honest from my own personal experience doing this 2 decades, right? Like traveling the world to like the rainforests of Costa Rica to Europe to Asia to all over the place. And even here in the U.S., like I remember I was on tour years ago and I went to Montgomery, Alabama. And everyone was like, "Oh, dude, what are you gonna do in Montgomery?" And I'm like, "It ain't no thing. Like, I'm cool." And it's like it's like or even where I grew up in Detroit, the city of Detroit, right? People are like, it's a food desert. You go to any number of places, Middle Eastern places, Asian places, Thai places, Chinese food. Like, you're gonna find plant-based options wherever you go. The only time I've ever had a challenge, and it honestly wasn't a big deal because it's one meal, was going to a steakhouse, right? People are like, "Oh, let's go meet at Laurie's or whatever," and I'm like, "Shoeless Steakhouse." I'm like, "Cool." So I would actually like request to talk to the chef. I'd be like, "Yo, I'm a chef. Could I talk to the chef?" Cool. "Hey, dude, could you whip me up just like a basic pasta dish or maybe like a baked potato and load it up with like some greens and like some nice seasoning and broccoli and just like just hook me up with something basic." Every single time I've actually asked to talk to a chef and have like a 2-minute conversation, they're like, "I got you." I've never had one chef ever be like, "I'm not going to do it." Like, they actually like to break away from the menu and do something different.
They like a challenge, right?
So all you got to do is just like speak your preference. And I've never had a meal or at a restaurant where I couldn't find something. Even if it's a baked potato, a side of steamed veggies, and a salad with a bunch of nuts and a vinaigrette dressing, you can find something to eat wherever you go. People are like, "Well, what about if you go to Tibet or Alaska?" I'm like, first of all, Alaska's cool. The only place, and I've not been there, but friends have gone, that are either plant-based or healthy eaters, they're like, "Look, if you're up in the Himalayas and there's like yak stew and that's it, or you don't eat, like, you do what you got to do." I've never been in that situation, but there's very few places on the planet in 2018 where you're not going to find like a decent plant-based meal.
Right.
Yeah.
Even in places like I mentioned, like Montgomery, Alabama, Detroit, Michigan, south side of Chicago, like places that I've gone on tour, places I've lived, it's not a big deal.
No.
People make it out to be this big deal. It ain't no thing. Seriously.
It was actually very cute. I was in Manila the first time, I think, was it in 2014, 2015. And I teach workshops over there, and I've been there a couple of times, and I usually stay with my friend Edna. And the Philippines are a very meat-based culture. And even health food, alternatives, vegan restaurant, it's not happening there yet.
Right.
So I stayed at her house, and I said to her, I'm vegan. And they were serving me fruit for breakfast and then salads the other 2 meals. And on the day 3, I'm like, I cannot see one more salad. I cannot eat salad for 2 weeks of staying here. She's like, yeah. And she's like, but no one really knows what to cook for you, Kristie. I'm like, it's really easy. Rice, vegetables. Just throw some vegetables in the pan and make it. And her staff actually learned how to prepare vegan meals from me. And when I came back in 2016, they were super excited because they had learned how to make vegan meals. And they're like, we remember what to cook for you. Here's your vegan dish.
Yeah.
It was such a sweet thing to have. And then I just have to add, the only thing that I have to always be adamant about, because I haven't eaten meat for more than 20-something years. And when I go to a place, I need to make sure there's no cross-contamination, meaning don't fry my veggie burger where you fry the meat. If I have French fries, don't throw it where you fry the fish and chips. Fry it separately. Or I asked to have the burger fried, my veggie burger fried in a separate pan. Or if they fry the veggies where they fry the meat, I'm like, can you just throw the veggies in a pan? Because I get sick and I'm in bed for a day and a half if there's cross-contamination. My body just cannot process it anymore.
Right.
So that's my only main thing I have to always make sure. But usually it's not a problem if you talk to people about it. They're like, yeah, no, we're supposed to throw it in an extra frying pan. And it's all good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I feel like people are more excited if they get to do things differently.
Yeah.
Now, there are certain restaurants, though, that will say, like, no substitutions on the menu. I've noticed that that's kind of becoming a trend.
Yeah.
Like, you'll browse the menu, they're like, please, no substitutions.
Is it because of us?
Yeah.
And I don't know. It could be.
It's because of Sally from Here and Sally, and I would like to dress her. Oh my God, that's awesome. So I have another one for you. That's what I get asked all the time. And
Number four.
Number 4. Myth number 4. Vegan food is too expensive, or healthy food is too expensive and too hard to make.
Okay, so we've got 2 there. Expensive, hard to make. Okay, let's break that down. So I have a series on YouTube that I've been doing with our buddy Vince Lia.
Yes.
If you look up Vince Lia on YouTube, Lia, he's got a whole series where we go to Costco, Target, Walmart. We're doing Aldi. We just shot one at Aldi. We're going to do Ralph's as well. So we have a series of about 5 or 6 like big box retailers, like major grocers that we've gone to not only show what the plant-based and vegan options are there, the organic options as well, the non-GMO options, but how inexpensive they are.
And those videos are awesome. I learned so much, and I already go to those stores, and I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea what I was missing. So thank you guys.
So first of all, the myth that big box retailers a la Walmart, Target, Costco, Ralph's, Aldi don't have options. They have tons of options because the consumer demand, if we look at the growth spike since 1990, the line of growth in the organic and plant-based industry it's massive. It doesn't the line on the graph doesn't dip. It just keeps going up. So food companies, manufacturers, they're in the business why? To make money. They want to make profits for their shareholders. So if they realize there's an exponential consumer demand for these goods, they're going to keep offering them. But the big way to save money, and we'll get to the preparation part in a second, is you want to buy in bulk as much as possible, because when you buy things that are in these tiny little packages, you'll notice it can be double, triple, quadruple the price. But if you buy out of the bulk bin, or you shop at even online places like Thrive Market, or places like VitaCost, or another one I like is Earth Shift Products. You buy things in larger sizes, bulk sizes, your price per pound, your price per liter, your price per gallon goes down significantly. So always buy in as large of quantities as you can, or join a buyer's club or a Costco or a Thrive Market. That's number 1. Number 2, it's too hard to make. I mean, there are recipe books. Here's the thing. There are recipe books out there that are complicated as hell. It seems like there are, in general, not just vegan recipe books, but cookbooks or cooking videos in general are one of 2 categories. Super simple and approachable foods, or we're just kind of like, how do I say this and be kind about it?
Without judgment.
This is cookbook masturbation. Okay? It's like, whoa, look what I can do. I can do this recipe that's going to take you 2.5 hours. Yeah, because you're a chef who gets to spend 2.5 hours making this stuff. that stuff is usually kind of like, I say, like the Food Network. Like people are on the couch
Yeah.
eating chips. They're like, it looks so good. They're never going to make that recipe.
Right.
Never going to make it. So I think there are a plethora of really simple, easy recipes that take you 30 minutes or less that are super nutrient dense. I mean, I always point people to like, look, if you have a Sunday afternoon or Sunday evening, take 2 to 3 hours out of your day, do all your shopping, and do a bulk prep. Make a giant bowl of quinoa or rice or steamed veggies for the week. Make a pot of chili that'll last you 5 days. Pre-make your salad dressing and pre-chop your veggies so you can just assemble it at work midweek.
Yeah.
But you got to, it's a time investment, right? But I feel like if you front load your week and you do 2 to 3 hours on a Sunday evening, Sunday afternoon, your time commitment through the week is going to be so much more minimal.
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of batch cooking and bulk prepping as well.
And I'm a big fan of Jason's mac and cheese recipe.
There we go. She's every time. Every time, girl.
Every time. And I actually make your sauce. I make it in big bulks.
The
and then
butternut
one day-
squash cheese.
The butternut squash cheese. And I put it on my pasta one day, and then I put it on my vegetables the next day, and then I put it on something else, another kind of vegetable the next day, and I put it in the oven. So the mac and cheese sauce lasts a whole week for me.
Yeah, and it's on
It's
sale
amazing.
on Amazon.com right now if you guys want to pick up a copy. Eternity.
Eternity.
With the famous mac and cheese sauce.
It is. I don't know how many people I got on that mac and cheese sauce.
I appreciate you spreading the gospel of mac and cheese.
Yes, I am.
It's good.
Busting the myth.
Busting the
that
myth.
vegan mac and cheese is not tasty.
Oh my gosh, and that's such an important one because the food that is in Jason's book and that is in many of the videos that you guys make with Vince and Whitney and Leslie and all of these people online who are doing incredible recipes, the food is so good, and so that's such a myth that we just eat salads all day.
That's right. Yeah, that's another one.
The
I
myth of
found.
deprivation.
And carrots.
It's
Yeah,
the myth
the
of deprivation,
deprivation.
right?
Yeah.
Because people are like, look, cool, it's easy, it's affordable, but I feel like I'm just never going to be satisfied.
Exactly. Yeah.
But for real, like I had that same fear when I started eating this way, and it was the 90s in Detroit, right? So it's like
Yeah.
I didn't know anybody in the 90s in Detroit that was eating this way, but my fear was like I want to do this, but I'm afraid I'm going to starve. But legitimately, the world of foods that I've been exposed to as a result of eating this way, like.
Yeah.
You would have told me like about dragon fruit 15 years ago, but like, what do you mean? There's fruit that looks it comes from like what do you mean? Dragons poop this out? What is dragon? I don't understand. Dragon fruit?
dragon's egg.
But like acai, dragon fruit, Brazil nuts, hemp seeds, plantains,
Jackfruit.
Adalufo
Yes,
mangoes,
jackfruit.
jackfruit, breadfruit. I mean the list is massive of stuff I didn't even know existed on the planet.
Right.
So for real, I feel like my food horizons and my culinary repertoire has expanded as a result of choosing this lifestyle. It's actually the exact opposite of deprivation. It's
Yeah.
abundance.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is maximum abundance.
Okay, and how about, I've heard this one, vegans or healthy people don't have any fun because they're so restrictive.
Don't have any fun?
We're actually having a lot of
You're talking
fun.
about a guy
having a blast.
who has snorted maca at parties before.
I was going to ask
Snorted.
you
You can
about
do that, by the way. FYI, everyone. You can snort maca. It'll burn, but boy, the energy rush is fantastic. Less addictive than cocaine, too. Boy, we don't want to go down that road.
Yeah, we do.
We do want to go down having fun? Yeah, okay, so
do.
it's this whole thing of like, look, vegans like to drink. We like to drink wine. We like to have our little liquor. We like to indulge in other things too. Like there's no, like you don't, it's not like you stop going out to concerts and movies and going
Right.
to the club with your friends
Right.
and staying up till 3 a.m. on occasion. You know, it's not like you stop engaging in fun activities.
Yeah.
Like it's this, I mean, now to be honest, and you asked that question, Allison, I think that there is an element of any lifestyle related to health where you can dip into orthorexia, which
Yeah.
is this obsessive, restrictive, super crazy perfectionist mentality. I do believe that's a real thing.
Of course.
Yeah.
But that's an individual thing that I think is often fed by people's mechanisms of wanting to control things. There's trauma in their life, and if they control their food choices, often as kids, right? And this comes from trauma as childhood. I'm going deep here. The one thing that we could control, especially as we got older, was what we put into our bodies.
Yeah.
So I feel like a lot of eating disorders, including orthorexia, which is this perfectionism around food, is a result of loss of control as a child. And if we feel like we assume control, then we have that feeling of safety.
Yeah.
So yes, can it be not fun? Yeah, but I feel like if you dwindle into like, I need to eat only food that is grown between 4 and 8 o'clock p.m. in the winter months, and it must be raw and biodynamic and clean and free range and only come from Oregon, then life's going to be a drag.
Right.
Life's going to be a drag. But eating plant-based, it's like, in fact, I find that like when I was like getting in friends and family on this train, if I would just make them food and invite them over for a party, and they're like, wait a second, you drink beer? You're a vegan? You drink wine? You
Vegan
eat mac and
wine?
cheese? You eat pizza? You eat ice cream? You do, wait, what do you mean? I'm like, yeah, dude, I eat all this stuff. This is like, what do you mean? What did you think I ate? Algae all day? Algae and bark? And fingernail clippings? Like, what do you think I eat?
Yeah.
So true. I had the best vegan donut this morning. Oh my gosh.
I
no
heard about that in the
deprivation
green
there.
room.
Oh my god.
Yeah, well, you want to talk about that a little more?
I need to get some more donuts.
What kind of
Oh, yeah.
donut? What kind of donut was it?
It was from a plant-based restaurant here in LA.
But
from
what kind of donut?
Sage. It was just a regular donut with chocolate on top of it, and it was so good. And it tasted so yummy. It was agave sweetened, so no refined sugar, gluten-free. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna get more. And that is also, what brings me joy. It's interesting because in the past, I've eaten sugar. I've done the dairy. I was vegetarian for a long time before I became vegan. And I actually have to say the opposite of that is true, where I don't feel deprived, where I actually feel happier because my body is being fed with food that nurtures and nourishes my body, and therefore it nourishes my spirit, my mind. I don't have all this heaviness going on in my gut. My gut feels amazing.
Yeah.
So I feel happier. So it's actually the opposite is true. Instead of, when we feed ourselves healthy foods, it elevates our moods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Vegan donuts.
That reminds me of a quote too from Dr. Gabriel Cousins, who was one of the first doctors that I remember on my plant-based journey when I was like really getting into the nutrition and learning how to do this healthy. And he's all about the energetics of food, right? And one of the quotes you reminded me of in just nourishing and this feeling of aliveness and excitement as you share this vegan donut story.
Yes.
He said the subtle energies of the food you eat become your being. So we know that like whatever we're taking in on a chemical, molecular, energetic level, it becomes a makeup of not only our physical body but our energetic body, right? So I'm all about like I'm big on sourcing. I want to know where stuff is grown, where did it come from? And there's been times when I've like walked into a restaurant and the energy of the people were like off, and I'm like, I don't want you preparing my food.
Yeah.
You're negative as hell.
Yeah.
Like I don't want your hands in my food, because that like I think about my grandmas and making food growing up. It wasn't necessarily the healthiest food, but they put so much love, like genuine, deep presence and love into that food. I think that's one reason why it tasted so good. Like they were amazing in the kitchen, their skills, but they infused it with deep love and reverence.
Yeah.
And I think that for a lot of the cuisine in the world, that's an element that's missing, is that level of presence and honoring and love being infused into the food.
Yeah.
Vegan or not, like people need to put the love into the food.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do we have time for one more vegan myth? I think we have time for one more vegan myth.
Is it going to be about sex?
Yeah.
No, is it? Because people always go there like, so how's it been?
Well, I just read a statistic about this. Did you guys see this?
What statistic?
Well, not a statistic, sorry, a quote from James Cameron. Did you guys see this?
No.
So James Cameron is saying veganism is better than, taking a
Viagra?
Yeah.
Oh, he said that?
Oh, he said that. Oh.
Really?
Now you guys are making me think he didn't, but he did. I read
No.
it.
I just it's interesting. Maybe he can make that next Avatar movie, James.
I think he's working on it.
He's
waiting
working
for
on
this,
it. He's
man.
working on 3 of them.
At once.
At once.
We'll give you a break then. We'll give you a break, James. We'll give you a break.
One of the questions I actually want you to, or one of the myths I want you to ask, talk to me a little bit about the blood types, because I'm, quite often hear, only specific blood types can go vegan or vegetarian. The other ones do need meat because otherwise they're going to be deficient in whatever.
From what I understand, and this was years ago when I first read the blood type thing, which came out, I think, in the late 90s.
Yeah.
At that time, I don't remember there being any third-party clinical peer-reviewed studies being tied to that theory.
Yeah.
That may be different now, but I remember at the time when I read it, there was no like really definitive scientific evidence that I was like, you're not convincing me on this. So that's number one. It could be different, but at the time I remember when it came out, there was no third-party independent study that made me go, this makes sense. The other thing too is I know people, very prominent leaders in our industry. I mentioned Dr. Gabriel Cousins. He's one. The other one is David Wolfe, who are vegan or raw food or vegetarian that are type O.
Yeah.
And according to the blood type diet, type O's are not supposed to be vegan or plant-based. You need meat. Now, I personally am AB negative. So I feel like, I don't know if that's one of the reasons I thrived on it, but I have not seen any research studies that have convinced me that that is a actual plausible theory. And also knowing people that have been eating plant-based for decades and decades that are type O, that are healthy and vibrant, to me that kind of flies in the face of that theory.
Yeah.
So I've never been convinced that that's actually a thing. And I've actually had battles with clients over it, like that I was making food for. They're like, oh, I need. I'm like, I don't think you do. So I'm not on that bandwagon, nor have I been convinced by any research that it is a worthwhile thing to pursue.
Thank you for busting that myth. Yay. Do you have one more?
Sure. I want to know, I would like everyone to weigh on this. When did veganism or eating healthy become, and it's not, but become the stereotype of it's elitist?
Wow. Well, I mean, we could uncork this in a big way.
And we have like 2 minutes left. Sorry, Kristie.
I think there's two things. I think number one, this myth that it's really expensive and people like, doing goji berry enemas and putting spirulina in their veins. And no, I mean, it's
Is this a thing?
There's all kinds of things. We don't have time, but I think it's this idea of
Gwyneth.
you flip through Instagram and you flip through social media and everyone's like, this is my $50 smoothie. And you're like, this is BS.
Right.
Like, I'm not going to eat this way. $50 for a smoothie. And I also think that there is a lot of, as you know, Allison, I grew up in a half Latino, half Puerto Rican family, right? And there's a lot of cultural undoing in the Latino community, African-American community, other ethnicities where, like, it was like, if you don't eat meat, you are not part of this culture. Like, I went through that with my family. Like, our identity is tied to this, the way we eat and the way we celebrate. And if you're not eating this at a meal, like, you are not part of this family. Like, there's a lot of cultural pressure in a lot of different ethnicities around this lifestyle. So I think the elitism is part of, like, it's too expensive, but the elitism too is like, oh, cool. Well, only a certain type of person can afford to do this thing, so I'm not going to do it because I'm not like some pompous person. So I think there's a lot of undoing because I know when I go and I connect with people at festivals, at conferences, I see people of all colors, all races, all ethnicities doing it now. So that encourages me that people are just like, look, I want to be healthy. I want to reverse the disease history of my family because in my family, it was heart disease, it was cancer, it was diabetes. And I didn't want to head down that road. So I'm seeing people from all religions, races, creeds, and colors doing this because they realize that Western medicine is not the key anymore.
Yeah.
So I know, I think the elitist thing, we're breaking that down more and more, and I'm happy that we are.
Yeah.
Because I think that, look, health is inclusive. Wellness is inclusive. Everybody wants to feel good in their body. And I think that's all it comes down to.
Yeah.
I blame Gwyneth Paltrow.
Damn it, Gwyneth.
I actually want to share a quick story with you before we wrap it up over here. As you both know, my partner Jibo was out there. And he's been he was told he needed to eat meat, and because of the blood type, that's the reason why I also asked. And his body would literally go into deprivation, not feeling good whenever he was trying to go vegan. So knowing how to test unconscious beliefs, we did some applied kinesiology on him, and he really had the belief, also ancestral, looking at epigenetic, he needed to eat meat in order to feel good, for his body to have strength. So we did a little bit of belief work on him, changed those beliefs. He hasn't eaten meat since then.
And how does he feel?
Wow.
Amazing. And his body does not want meat anymore.
How interesting.
Completely, like overnight, from one day to the next, he was able to go vegan just because he had the belief he needed meat. His body reacted in that specific way where he would feel ill. And the moment he actually changed the belief, his body is feeling amazing and vibrant on a completely plant-based diet.
Amazing.
So powerful.
It's so,
Amazing.
so cool. But it also shows, again, how we started the show. What is our imprinting? How are we supposed to show up in the world? And what are these beliefs, these patterns that we're breaking right now? And I feel like there is so much about that's why I wanted to do the myth busting with the two of you today, because it's showing these myths that we've been taught that are just not true, as Jason just showed us. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And let's bust these myths that change these beliefs, because I feel like we can create a much happier and healthier world if we're all going plant-based. For ourselves, for the animals, for everyone, for the environment.
Yeah, I think if we're gonna, not to be doomsday or anything, that's not but I think if we're gonna like survive past this generation, the next, people got to start eating more plants and eating less animals. Like the evidence is there, the research is there. We can't really deny it anymore.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yay, plants.
Eat plants. It feels like that was a good final message, Jason. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
So, Jason, tell our audience how they can best get in touch with you.
Yeah, send a homing pigeon to 11:40. I'm sorry. It's Game of Thrones. Send a crow. People can stalk me on social media. My website's Jason Wrobel, Jason Wrobel. Social media, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, all at Jason Wrobel, and Facebook is Jason Wrobel Official. So yes, I'm easily findable. And you can send me a message. I also like donuts, so if anybody wants to send me donuts. Vegan donuts. Always in the mood for that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. And Allison, you tell us really quick about Food Heals and where people can listen to your podcast.
Sure. We're on iTunes. We're on iHeartRadio. We're anywhere you can find your podcast. We're working on Alexa right now, and you can look us up at foodhealsnation.com. Social media is Food Heals Nation. You can join us in Italy for a vegan Italian retreat June 2nd through 9th at www.foodhealsnation.com/Italy.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you, both of you. Thank you, my amazing co-host. Thank you, Jason, for being here today and for busting all these myths and helping our audience turn more and more plant-based. Let's spread the message, people. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you.
Yay.
And Rebel Hearts, that's it for today. We'll see you again in a couple of weeks. And if you haven't done so, go to our website, KristieReeves.com. You'll see the links for all the replays of all the shows we've previously done. Sign up for our podcast on iTunes. And if you can, leave us a review, because it's going to help you to continue bring amazing guests onto the show. See you in a couple of weeks. And remember, in the meantime, to rebel on.
In the future, talk radio will actually educate, inspire, and make you think. The future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.